Well, ladies and gentlemen, the horses are stepping to the track for the Mid-America Harness Drivers Club event, a trot of 1 mile. In this race, scratch the 1 Chicanery, scratch the 8 Spartan Hall, and scratch the 10 Sonic Scott. Number 2 is Don't Tell Dana, owned by the Hatfield Stables of Columbus, Ohio, trained by Milton Smith with Bud Hatfield. Number 3 is Lady Marino, owned by William Myers and Ron Taubert of Dayton, Ohio, trained by Ron Taubert with Bill Myers. Number 4 is Grand Fran, owned by Ehrenberg, Lena Joe Sturgill Pollock. They're all of Ohio, trained by Jim Pollock Jr. with David Ehrenberg II. Number 5 is John T. Burton Me, owned by the Westgate Motors Incorporated of Columbus, Ohio, trained and driven by Robert Chapman. Number 6 is Honest Action, owned by Robert Stack of Marengo, Ohio, who also does the training and driving. Number 7 is Super World, owned by Baker Jr. and Sheila Mitchell of Greenwood, Delaware, trained by Brent Davis. Brent Davis is out. The 8 Spartan Hall is out. The 9 Born on the 4th of July, owned by Ron Stack of Marengo, Ohio, who also does the training. Roger Bartley Jr. at the lines, and scratch the 10 Sonic Scott. That is the field for the Mid-America Harness Drivers Club. They'll go to the post at post time, less than 1 minute away. The gate is rolling. Non-wagering event, Mid-America Harness Drivers Club. Horses and drivers are all moving in behind the gate. A field of 8 with a scratch of the 1 Chicanery, the 8 Spartan Hall, and the 10 Sonic Scott. Field in motion. They're all fan trotting and firing away from the outside. There goes Super World, who's headed for command. From the extreme outside, there is the 9, Born on the 4th of July. Middle of the racetrack, coming away in 3rd. That is John T. Burton Me. Along the inside in 4th is Don't Tell Dana and Bud Hatfield. Along the inside in 5 is Lady Marino and Bill Meyer. To the inside racing in 6th. As they trot around the first turn is Grand Fran and Dave Ehrenberg in 7th, and trailing the field as they trot towards the opening quarter-mile mark of the race. That is Honest Action and Robert Stack. By the opening quarter came and went in 28 3/5, and they'll pass on by the stands for the first time and head on down to the half. And Born on the 4th of July, and Roger Bartley Jr. leads it here by length and a half. To the inside, Super World and Brent Davis is trotting into a gap of 2.5. Trotting in 3rd is John T. Burton Me and Robert Chapman there. Along the inside in 4th is Don't Tell Dana and Bud Hatfield. To the inside in 5 is Lady Marino and Bill Myers. Inside racing in 6th. That is Grand Fran and David Ehrenberg in 7th, and trailing the field. That is Honest Action and Robert Steck. Can see them all as they went by the opening quarter in 28 3, the half in 58 4/5. Off the turn and driving down the backside of the Mid-America Harness Drivers Club and on top of the field. Born on the 4th of July, and Roger Bartley Jr. leads it here by length and a half. To the inside, Super World is still stalking in 2nd, a gap of 2.5. Trotting in 3rd. That is John T. Burton Me. Inside and racing in 4th. That is Don't Tell Dana. Now Bud Hatfield flushes to the outside with Don't Tell Dana as they trip the 3/4 mile beam of the race. 3/4 in 1:30 1/5, and Born on the 4th of July has went on a break here and racing inside the pylons, but is clear of everything. And Super World now inherits the lead as they turn to the top of the stretch. Less than 1/8 of a mile to go, and down the stretch they come, driving through Power Alley. On top, Super World with the lead. John T. Burton Me and Robert Chapman is coming to him and coming on as they drive within the final 16. Super World in front. Finishing 2nd of the mile was the 5-horse John T. Burton Me and Bob Chapman. The top of the mile, 2:01 3/5. Super World and Brent Davis. Now stepping trackside to the winner's circle, the official winner of the Mid-America Harness Drivers Club non-wagering event. Here's the 7 Super World. An 8-year-old bay horse by Super Bowl out of a Worldly Woman mare. She by Speedy Somalia. Owned by Alex Baker Jr. and Sheila Mitchell of Greenwood, Delaware. Nicely trained and driven by Brent Davis. Home winner in 2:01 3/5. Super World. In the winner's circle to make the trophy presentation to the winning connections here, Super World and Brent Davis, the treasurer of the Mid-America Harness Drivers Club, Mr. Jeff Cahill. Here is the rundown for that non-wagering event, top to bottom. Chicanery was scratched. Number 2, Don't Tell Dana, was 4th, place 3rd. $2,400, a field of 10, no changes. Exactas and tries, early daily double. The 1 is Anita Crombie. The lessee is also the trainer Tom Blankenship of Asheville, Ohio, with Sandy Beatty. The 2 is Flaming Trick, owned and trained by Ken Reynolds of LaRue, Ohio, with Jack Daly. The 3 is Rhyme and Thyme. The lessee is also the trainer Benny Eggers of Wilmington, Ohio, with Jeff Nicehunger. Number 4 is Melody Maid. And the lessee is Frederick Frew of Nashport, Ohio, trained by Jerry Kuchbach with Mark Witters. The 5 is Magic Star, owned and trained by Donald Robinson of Cincinnati, Ohio, Jason Brewer. The 6 is Arizona Katie, owned by Howard Mills of Mount Vernon, Ohio, trained by Howard Mills with Jim Delia. The 7 is Big and Fancy, owned by Richard and May Stempley of Hamilton, Ohio, trained by Mike Lee with Danny Noble. The 8 is Poco Curante, owned by Carol Gamble of Bradford, Ohio, trained by Steve Livingston with Bob Harper. The 9 is Canvas, owned by Sharon Lane of Sunbury, Ohio, and Raymond Kenny of Croton, Ohio, trained by Raymond Kenny with Brett Miller. And scoring from up the second tier is number 10, Fran Cam Cisco, owned by Calvin Lamb of Marion, Ohio, trained by Jim Pollock Jr. Kyle Ader is in her sulky field in motion. They're all fan pacing and firing away from the outside. There goes Big and Fancy. Right alongside of that is Poco Curante. Middle of the track there, that's the 6 Arizona Kitty. From the inside, Flaming Trick is on the go as well. As they step around the first turn and over to the opening quarter, and Big and Fancy is trying to clear to the front end here, but Flaming Trick, they'll now yield for a garden spot, racing in 2. Poco Curante dropped in, racing in 3rd, a gap at 2 and 4th. That is Arizona Kitty. 5th on the inside is Anita Crombie. 6th there is Fran Cam Cisco as they step by the opening quarter in 27 seconds flat. Passing the stands for the first time and heading on down to the half. And Big and Fancy and Dan Noble leads it here by length and a half. Along the inside, Flaming Trick is racing in 2nd. Poco Curante is racing in 3rd. Arizona Kitty is first to flush on the outside in 4th. Towing along Anita Crombie, 2nd over there. Along the inside of there, that is Fran Cam Cisco. 3rd over on the outside, that is the 3 Rhyme and Thyme. And then we come back to the 3 trailers, which are Melody Maid, the 5 Magic Star, and 10th and last is Canvas. As they step by the half in 57 and 2/5. Off the turn and driving down the backside. And Big and Fancy is being headed here on the outside by Arizona Katie. And Arizona Katie now clears to the front end here. Anita Crombie is right there now, racing in 2nd. Up on the outside, racing in 3rd, that is Poco Curante. And backing through the field, Big and Fancy has got Flaming Trick all bound up there as they race by the 3/4 mile mark of the race. 3/4 on the board in 1:27 flat. They'll pace the final turn and head for home to the inside. Arizona Katie with the lead, but now Anita Crombie to the outside is applying heavy pressure. Poco Curante is on the inside, awaiting the passing lane in 3rd to the top of Heartbreak Lane. Less than 1/8 of a mile to go, and down the stretch they come at the opener. And Arizona Katie is being set down with a stretch drive. Anita Crombie is trying to come to her, but Arizona Katie is very game here. Arizona Katie in front. Finishing 2nd was the 1, Anita Crombie. 3rd was the 8, Poco Curante. The time of the mile, 1:56, 4/5. Arizona Katie in a new lifetime mark. Trackside of the winner's circle, the unofficial winner of the first race, Fillies and Mares, conditioned pace here, timed in 1:56 and 4 to establish a new lifetime mark. First win in 2003. Here's the 6, Arizona Katie, a 4-year-old brown mare by Arizona Jack out of a Katie Corbett. She by Advocate is owned and trained by Howard Mills of Mount Vernon, Ohio. Nicely driven to victory by Jim Daly. In the winner's circle to meet the winners in the first race and throughout the evening, Heather Miller. The 6 Arizona Kitty reports home at a new lifetime mark, 1:56, 4/5. The 6-1-8-2 is now official. 6-1 exact. Out of the big city of Newark, Ohio, with Joe Adamski. There's the 2, Lore Bob, owned by Walters of Newark, Ohio, and Norman of Zanesville, Ohio, trained and driven by Dave Myers. Number 3 is Mia Rebo, owned by Melby Over Sr. of Cable, Ohio, trained by Ann Hildebrand with Mark Winters at the lines. Number 4 is Brittany Lee, owned, trained, and driven by Roger Plummer of Wilmington, Ohio. Number 5 is Little Joe, owned by Parker of Canal, Winchester, Ohio, and Berger of Columbus, Ohio, trained by Douglas Parker with Dean Collins. Number 6 is Recommended, owned by Russell Herr and Michael Price, both of the Buckeye State, trained and driven by Mike Price. Number 7 is Pocket Full of Rye, owned by Noe of Blacklick, Ohio, and Simmons of Granville, Ohio, trained and driven by Jeff Collins. Number 8 is Sturdiella, owned by the A to Z Sales, trained by Ed Burnley with Jim Daly. The 9 is Dame Edith Hanover, owned by the T. Cody Trust of Hilliard, Ohio, trained by Robert Del Bianco with Bob Harper. And scoring from off the second tier, number 10, Spitfire Sob, owned by Robert Radaball of London, Ohio, trained and driven by Dean Gillespie in the sulky. Field in motion. They're all fan trotting and firing away from the inside. There goes the 2, Lore Bob. From the outside, there is Dame Edith Hanover, who's on the go. Middle of the track, Sturdy Ella looks to drop in, racing in third. Along the inside in 4, that is Brittany Lee. Got to the outside in 5, that is Recommended. Along the inside in 6, that is Experience. 7th is Mia Rebo. 8th along the inside there, that is Little Joe. And then we come down to the 2 trailers here, which are Spitfire Sob and Pocket Full of Rye. Can see them all. As they trot by the opening quarter, the initial quarter was in 28 and 4/5. They'll trot on by the stands for the first time and head on down to the half. And on top of the field, Dame Edith Hanover from post 9, clear to the frontier by 2. Lore Bob is trotting in second. Along the inside, Sturdiella trots in third. 4th there, that is Brittany Lee. 5th is Recommended. 6th is Experience. 7th is Mia Rebo. 8th is Little Joe. And the 2 trailers remain Spitfire Sob and Pocket Full of Rye as they trot around the clubhouse turn. And they're still in straight alignment here. And on top of the field, Dame Edith Hanover through a half and 59 seconds flat. Along the inside, Lore Bob is giving chase in second. To the inside in third, that is Sturdy Ella. First to flush on the outside, racing in fourth. Here comes Brittany Lee, and Brittany Lee is sent first over the outside, trotting in fourth. 5th on the inside is Recommended. Then a gap of 5 lengths there in 6th. That is Experience. 7th on the inside of Mia Rebo. To the outside at 8th, Little Joe. Along the inside at 9th is Pocket Full of Rye. And 10th and trailing the field, Spitfire Sob as they trot towards 3/4 and Dame Edith Hanover through 3/4 and 1:29 and 2/5. They'll trot the final turn and head for home, and Dame Edith Hanover with the lead here. But Brittany Lee is up on the outside and sticks a neck in front. Along the inside, Lore Bob is trying to come 2 and 3rd as they turn to the top of Power Alley. Less than an 1/8 of a mile to go, and driving through the stretch, Brittany Lee now to the front end. Along the inside, Dame Edith Hanover as they roll within the final 16th. Brittany Lee. Brittany Lee is drawing clear by 3 on the wire. Finishing second was Dame Edith Hanover. 3rd was the 2, Lore Bob. The time of the mile, 1:59, 1/5. Brittany Lee in a new lifetime mark. $4.928 is unofficial. Show early doubles 6-4, 73.80, 4-9 exacta 37.80, 4-9-2 try returns $141.60. Trackside of the winner's circle, the official winner of the second race, trotting home at 1:59 and 1/5 to establish a new lifetime mark. Here's the 4, Brittany Lee, a 5-year-old bay mare by Inquirer out of a Going My Way mare. She by Lindy's Pride is owned, trained, and driven by Roger Plummer of Wilmington, Ohio, posting the 3rd win in 2003. Brittany Lee and Roger Plummer, 1:59, 1/5, new lifetime mark. 36197 10 on the bottom. Well, the upcoming third race should be noted, the 4-horse Better Still. A field of 9. The 1 is Lucky Boy, owned by Stephen Kaufman of our Cannibal How, trained by Kane Kaufman with Brett Miller. Number 2 is Native Song, owned by Edwin Ellis of Cedarville, Ohio, trained by Lamar Moody with Jeff Ace Nicehunger. Number 3 is Tsunami, owned by Mark and Matt Rowe of Urbana, Ohio, trained by Robert Stapleton with Dan Noble. The 4 is Better Still, owned by Michael Wempler and Dan Russo, both of the Buckeye State, trained by Mike Kepler with Jim Daly. The 5 is Caleb Special, owned by Pearl Paver of Marysville, Ohio, trained by Joe Paver with Jack Daly. The 6 is Joe P. Cadet. The lessee is also the trainer William Dorn of Worthington, Ohio, with Jim Shelton. The 7 is Shelby Swinger, owned and trained by Robert Davis of Lebanon, Ohio, with a driver's change to David Setzer. Number 8 is Raceway Mall, owned by Rick Starr of Hilliard, Ohio, trained by Jeff Brewer with Jason Brewer up. And from the outside of the 9 is Al's Draw, owned by Billy Joe Riley of Eubank, Kentucky, trained by Tommy Lee Smith, Tony Hall in the sulky. Benish Friedlander, field in motion. They're all fan pacing and firing away from the inside. There goes Lucky Boy right alongside. That is Native Song. Driving up to the middle of the track, there is Joe P. Cadet. Furthermore out, that is Shelby Swinger. Coming away racing in 5, that is Tsunami. 6th on the inside is Better Still. 7th along the rail, that is Caleb Special. 8th is Raceway Mall. And 9th and trailing the field, that is Al's Draw as they race around the first turn and over to the opening quarter. And Brett Miller has Lucky Boy on the front end here through the opening quarter of 28 and 2/5. They pass the stands for the first time and march on down to the half. And Lucky Boy on the front end here, leading it by a length and a quarter. Native Song and Ace Nicehunger in the garden spot is racing in 2. Joe P. Cadet is racing in 3rd. Along the inside, unhurried in 4th, that is Shelby Swinger. First over the outside in 5, that is Tsunami. Catching that cover, second over the outside in 6, that is Caleb Special. Up on the outside in 7th, that is Al's Draw. Along the inside, racing in 8th as they step around the clubhouse, turning on over to the halfway mile mark of the race. That is the 4 Better Still in 9th and trailing the field, Raceway Mall. They're halfway home in 59 seconds flat and off the turn and driving down the backside. And Lucky Boy leads it here by 3 parts of the length. Tsunami is grinding it out first over on the rim, racing in 2 along the inside. Native Song is watching over these dueling leaders from 3rd. Second over on the outside, gapping the cover in 4th. That is Caleb Special. Buried at the rail in 5, Joe P. Cadet. To the outside in 6th. Third over is Al's Draw. 7th on the inside, Shelby Swinger. To the outside in 8th, Raceway Mall in 9th and trailing the field, Better Still. 3/4 and 1:28 and 2/5. They'll pace the final turn and head for home. And Lucky Boy under a tippy tap of the whip here. Tsunami still there and now swung up 3 wide on the outside. Here comes Caleb Special and 4 wide on the outside. Al's Draw is out for the drive. Less than an eighth of a mile to go. And down the stretch they come. Middle of the track, Tsunami, but to the outside, Caleb Special is rolling on. And Al's Draw is coming to the picture along with Native Song, who is flying in the super stretch. But at the wire, it's Caleb Special who got the jump on him. Finishing second was the 2, Native Song. It was close for 3rd at the time of the mile, 1:58 3/5. Caleb Special. Caleb Special, an 8-year-old brown gelding by Black Sable out of a BJD Special. She by GT Skipper. Is owned by Pearl Warren Paver of Marysville, Ohio. Trained by Joe Paver. Nicely handled here this evening by winning driver Jack Daly. First win in 2003. Home in 1:58 and 3. The 5, Caleb Special and Jack Daly. This blanket presentation of the winner's circle by Benish Friedlander. Welcome to Scioto Downs. Leaving us a field of 9 to go postward. The one is Ask Me About It, owned by Parker of Canal, Winchester, Ohio, and Berger of Columbus, Ohio, trained by Doug Parker with Dean Collins. Dean Collins will drive. The two quickly took over. My Bud Light long shot of the night is owned by Elizabeth Brandt of Logan, Ohio, trained and driven by Dave Myers. Number 3 is Homer Iliad, owned by Mary Jo Rainey Bross of Portsmouth, Ohio, trained and driven by Sandy Beatty. Number 4 is Lady Gracious, owned by Clarence You Can Call Me Sonny DeLong of Orient, Ohio, trained by Daryl Hoosier with the hitman Brett Miller. Number 5 is Lost in the Mist, owned by Williams of Wytheville, Virginia, and Hauser of Mount Airy, North Carolina, trained and driven by Arthur Hauser. The 6, Flossy Flo, is out sick. The 7 is Ultimate Laser, owned by Kelly of London, Ohio, and Roberts of South Vienna, Ohio, trained by Jerry Roberts. Jerry Roberts is the driver. The 8 is Regal Visitor, owned by Jane Cummins of Lexington, Kentucky, trained by Charles Beaver with Bob Harper. From the outside of the 9 is Striking Sabrina. Alessi is also the trainer and driver, Jack Daly of Jamestown, Ohio, and scoring from off the second tier is number 10, Before Long, owned by Joan Mace of Washington Courthouse, Ohio, trained by Jim Artledge. Kyle Waiter in the sulky. In motion. Being sent on their way. They're off and trotting and firing for the lead from the inside. There goes Homer Iliad. Right alongside there is Lost in the Mist. From the rail there is Ask Me About It. And from the outside there is Ultimate Laser. As they race around the first turn, they're 4 deep and on top of the field. Leading the way, that is Homer Iliad. Is now up on the outside. There is Ultimate Laser, and off stride of the rail, that is Ask Me About It, who's on a break there, along with Striking Sabrina, as they trot around the first turn and over to the opening quarter and up on the outside. Ultimate Laser and Jerry Roberts is looking for the front interior through the opening quarter at 29 3/5. Along the inside, Homer Iliad is yielded for a garden spot, racing in second. A gap of some 9-10 lengths, trotting in third, that is Lost in the Mist. Fourth on the inside is Quickly Took Over. A gap of 3 more, racing there in fifth, that is Before Long. Sixth is Ask Me About It. 7th to the outside is Regal Visitor. 8th on the inside, that is Lady Gracious. And 9th and trailing the field, but back down trotting, that is Striking Sabrina as they trot around the clubhouse turn. On top, that's Ultimate Laser, and Ultimate Laser reports to the half. They're halfway home in 1 minute and 1/5. Off the turn and setting sail down the backside. On top of the field, Ultimate Laser leads it here by a length and a quarter. To the inside, Homer Iliad is right there, nose to helmet, racing in second. A gap of 2.5, trotting in third, that is Lost in the Mist. Along the inside in fourth, that is Quickly Took Over. First two on the outside, racing in 5, that is Regal Visitor, who is towing along Striking Sabrina there as they trot towards the 3/4 mile mark of the race. And Ultimate Laser leads it here by a length and a quarter. To the inside, Homer Iliad is still right there, racing in second. 3/4 in 1:31 and 1/5. First two on the outside, trotting in third, that is Regal Visitor, as they trot around the final turn to the top of the stretch. On top of the field, Ultimate Laser, but up on the outside, Regal Visitor is now bearing down on the outside, less than 1/8 of a mile to go, and down the stretch they come. Ultimate Laser, but now Regal Visitor strikes the frontier. Homer Iliad to the passing lane, but as they roll within the final 16th, Regal Visitor in front. Very close for second, may have been the 3, Homer Iliad over the 7, Ultimate Laser, the time of the mile, 2 minutes, 3/5. Regal Visitor, first career start, first career victory. Now official, trackside of the winner's circle, the official winner of the 4th race. In his first career start, home very impressively here, a winner in 2 minutes, 3/5. Here's the 8, Regal Visitor, a 3-year-old bay colt by world champion Malabar Man out of a Crown Gust mare, she by Royal Prestige, is owned by Jane Cummins of Lexington, Kentucky, trained by Mr. Charles Beaver. Nicely handled here this evening by winning driver Bob Harper. First career start, first career victory. The 8, Regal Visitor and Bob Harper, 2 minutes, 3/5. 8-3 exacta, 84-20, 8-3-7 try, 5:30-60. The 1 is Keen Angel. Jeff Cahill's Budweiser Best Bet of the Night is owned by William and Elizabeth Ann Keen of Richmond, Kentucky, trained by Ben Eggers with Jeff Neishunger. Number 2 is Ms. Pininfarina, owned by Velocity Standardbreds of Lebanon, Ohio, trained and driven by Mark Evers. Number 3 is CJ Rainmaker, owned by John Fike of New Albany, Ohio, trained and driven by Billy Walters. Number 4 is Powerlicious, owned by the Sterling Brook Farms Incorporated of Sheltonville, Massachusetts, trained by Jim Artledge Jr. with Bob Harper. The 5 is Tears of Joy, owned by Ronald and Veronica Edwards of Newark, Ohio, trained and driven by Kenny Kidd. Number 6, Kiki Hall is out judges. The 7 is 3+1, owned by Alan Adams of Franklin, Ohio, trained by John Ingram with Dan Noble. And for the outside of the 8 is Sandy Apple, owned by Richard Oldfield of Lexington, Kentucky, who also does the training. Brett Miller, Ian Hersulke, in motion. They're all fan pacing and firing away from the middle of the track. The first call goes to the 5, Tears of Joy. Driving up in between horses, that is CJ Rainmaker. From the inside, there is Ms. Panine Farina. And they're stacked up 3 deep as they roll around the first turn. A gap of 3. Racing in 4th, that is Keen Angel. 5th on the inside, that is Powerlicious. 6th, that is 3+1. And 7th in trailing the field, that is Sandy Apple. And Brett Miller can see them all as they step around the first turn and over to the opening quarter. And Billy Walters has placed CJ Rainmaker on the front end here through an opening quarter of 28 3, but now up on the outside, here comes Ms. Pinfanina up on the outside to take the lead as they race by the stands for the first time and head on down to the half. And Ms. Pinfanina leads the way here by a length and a half. To the inside, CJ Rainmaker is yielding for a garden spot, racing in 2. Tears of Joy is in there in 3rd. To the inside, racing in 4th, that is Keen Angel, who is unhurried there. To the outside, racing in 5 is Powerlicious. Along the inside in 6th is 3+1, and 7th in trailing the field, Sandy Apple. As they race by the half, they're halfway home in 1 minute and 4 fifths. Off the turn and driving down the backside, 2-year-old pacing fillies in on top of the field. Ms. Pinfanina leads the way here by a length and a half, 2. Along the outside, racing in 2nd. Now first over there, that is the 5-horse Tears of Joy. Along the inside, racing in 3rd is CJ Rainmaker. 2nd over the outside, racing in 4th. Powerlicious buried at the rail in 5, and a ton of pace there. Keen Angel as they race towards the 3/4 mile mark of the race. 3/4 on the board in 1:30 flat. They'll pace the final turn and head for home. And Ms. Pinfarina leads the way here by a widening length and a half. To the outside, Tears of Joy could not go with her in 2nd. Along the inside in 3rd is CJ Rainmaker, and now swung up 3 wide to the outside. Here comes Keen Angel off the turn and driving through Power Alley on top of the field. Ms. Pinfarina with the lead here. To the outside, Tears of Joy is trying to come back to her along with CJ Rainmaker. Keen Angel, but at the wire, Ms. Pinfarina wins it. Finishing 2nd of the mile looked like the 5, Tears of Joy. 3rd was the 3, CJ Rainmaker. The top of the mile, 1:59, 1/5. First career victory, Ms. Pinfarina. Well, here she is, stepping trackside of the winner's circle for the first time in her career, timed at 1:59 and 1/5. Here's the 2, Ms. Pinfarina. A 2-year-old bay filly by Jenna's Beach Boy out of a Steinham's Girl, she by Annihilator. Royally bred here, owned by the Velocity Standardbreds of Lebanon, Ohio. Nicely trained and driven by Mark Evers. The 2, Ms. Pinfarina, gets her first career victory, 1:59, 1/5. Kenny Kidd returning 360-260. 3rd was the 3, CJ Rainmaker, returning 360 there. 362 by Wiggins and Rose Stables, limited liability practice of Xenia, Ohio, trained and driven by Jack Daly. Number 2 is Hosanna's Charm, owned and trained by Daryl Sams of Chillicothe, Ohio, with Bob Harper. The 3 is Teak Teak, owned by Doris Newhart of Marietta, Ohio, trained by Ron Newhart with Brett Miller. Number 4 is Amy's Shining Angel, owned by Deborah Sears of Delaware, Ohio, trained by Larry Sears with Mark Winters. The 5 is Lusty Lita, owned by Joseph D. Schoaf of Johnstown, Ohio, trained by Joe L. Schoaf. Joe D. Schoaf is up. The 6 is Cousin Tink, owned, trained, and driven by Bobby Arnett of Cardington, Ohio. The 7 is Charity Bond, owned by Mullen of Fort Wright, Kentucky, and Morgan of Villa Hills, Kentucky, trained by Tom Horner Jr. with Tony Hall. The 8 is Katie Casey, owned by Liddell Adamski and Alan Kirchenbaum of Florida and California, trained and driven by Smilin' Joe Adamski. Number 9, Sassy Gwen, owned by Earl Standard of Delaware, Ohio, trained by Russ Baldwin with Dan Noble. And scoring from off the 2nd tier is number 10, Perfect Print, owned by Breckler and Mogan, both of the Buckeye State, trained by Scott Mogan, Jim Daly, Ian Hersulke. In motion. They're all fan pacing in a very even start here. The middle of the track, the first call goes to the 5, Lusty Lita. Driving up from the rail, there is Sharp Connection. From the outside, there is Katie Casey looking to drop in third. Along the inside, Hosanna's Charm has come away in fourth. Up on the outside in 5, that is Sassy Gwen. Sixth along the rail, that is Teak Teak. Seventh along the rail, that is Perfect Print. Looking to drop in eighth, that is Amy's Shining Angel. Ninth there along the inside is Cousin Tink. And 10th and trailing the field, Charity Bond. As they move by the opening quarter came and went in 28 and 1/5, and now up on the outside, Sassy Gwen and Dan Noble has placed this one on the front end here. Lusty Lita's going along in 2. Sharp Connection is racing in 3rd, a gap of 3.5. Racing in 4th is Katie Casey. 5th is Hosanna's Charm. 6th is Teak Teak. 7th there is Perfect Print. 8th is Amy's Shining Angel. 2 trailers here are Cousin Tink and Charity Bond as they race around the clubhouse turn and step on over to the half. On top of the field, Sassy Gwen is calling the shots here through a half and 58 seconds flat. A second panel there of 29 and 4. Off the turn and driving down the backside. And on top of the field, Sassy Gwen and Dan Noble with the lead here. Sharp Connection is grinding it out first over on the outside, racing in 2. Along the inside, Lusty Lita is racing in 3rd. Second over on the outside, racing in 4th. That is Hosanna's Charm. 3rd over on the outside in 5 there is Teak Teak. Buried at the rail in 6th. That is Katie Casey as they race towards the 3/4 mile mark of the race. And on top, Sharp Connection. Sharp Connection through 3/4 in 1:27 and 3/5. They'll pace the final turn and head for home. Sharp Connection to the inside. Hosanna's Charm is right there at the leader's wheel disc in 2, and Teak Teak moves to the inside here and is full of pace as they turn to the top of the stretch. Less than 1/8 of a mile to go, and down the stretch they come. Sharp Connection with the lead here. Hosanna's Charm still there, still coming to him, and down to the passing lane. Teak Teak is flying along with Amy's Shining Angel, but as they come to the wire, Teak Teak in front. Finishing second of the mile looked like the 2, Hosanna's Charm over a hard-charging Amy's Shining Angel for 3rd. The top of the mile, 1:57, 4/5. Teak Teak gonna do right side of the winner's circle. The official winner of the 6th race, scoring in the super stretch, is the 3 Teak Teak, stopping the teletimer in 1:57 and 4 to establish a new lifetime mark. A 4-year-old bay mare by King Gypsy out of a Bakerfield mare, Uptown Shady, owned by Doris Newhart of Marietta, Ohio, trained by Ron Newhart. Nicely driven here this evening by Scioto Downs leading driver, the Hitman, Brett Miller. A field of 9. The 1 is Falkirk, owned by Roy Swaney of Spring Valley, Ohio, trained by David Loff with Jim Daly. The 2 is Famous Flyer, owned by Jerome Grogan of Cincinnati, Ohio, trained by Calvin Wright with Jeff Ace Nicehonger. The 3 is Carolina Haley, owned by Randy White of West Carrollton, Ohio, trained by Virgil Morgan Jr., Brett Miller. The 4, Yankee Frankie, racing for the purse only, owned by Susan and Philip James of Middletown, Ohio, trained by Phil James with John Collins. The 5 is Rock Patrol, owned by Horner Racing Stables of Dayton, Ohio, trained by Tom Horner Jr. Tony Hall is up. The 6 is LS Purse Snatcher, owned by Ronald Ross of Staffordsville, Kentucky, trained by Jeff Brewer, Jason Brewer at the lines. The 7 is Governor Hooney, owned by Kay Rush of Kenton, Ohio, trained by Brad Crates with Kyle Wader. The 8 is Noble Grinder, owned by Kathy Collins Taylor and Michael Taylor of Columbus, Ohio, trained and driven by Dean Collins. From the outside is Hawaiian Macho Man. My Budweiser Best Bet of the Night is owned and trained by Randy Lee Owens of Lebanon, Ohio, with Bob Harper. And scoring from off the second tier, number 10, New Bucks, owned by Russell and Sherry Angelback of Dublin, Ohio, trained by Russell Angelback, Jack Daly in the sulky. Purse only. Field in motion. They're all fan pacing and firing away middle of the track. There goes the 5, Rock Patrol. From the inside, there is Falkirk. Driving up from the outside, there is Hawaiian Macho Man. Coming away, racing in 4th. From off the second tier is New Bucks, looking to drop in, racing in 5. That is Yankee Frankie. 6th on the inside is Famous Flyer. 7th there is LS Purse Snatcher. 8th along the inside is Governor Hooney. And 9th and trailing the field is Noble Grinder. As they move over towards the opening quarter and on top of the field, leading the way here towards the opening quarter, That's the one Falkirk through an opening quarter of 28 and 1/5. Passing the stands for the first time and heading on down to the half in Falkirk with the lead here. Rock Patrol, the garden spot, is racing in 2. Looks as though Hawaiian Macho Man will take the long mile, the outside in 3. Second over on the outside in 4th. That is Famous Flyer. Buried at the rail in 5 is Yankee Frankie. Third over on the outside in 6. That is LS Purse Snatcher. 7th there is Governor Hooney. 8th is Noble Grinder. 9th and trailing the field after the break is Rock Patrol. As they race towards the half, they're halfway home in 57 and 3/5. Off the turn and driving down the backside in Falkirk. Leads the way here along the inside. New Bucks is stalking in second. First over on the outside, beginning to relent a bit in third. That is Hawaiian Macho Man. Pulled up but out of the race. That is Rock Patrol as they race down the backside in Falkirk with the lead here along the inside. New Bucks is challenging in second. Along the inside, racing in third. That is Yankee Frankie on the outside in 4th. Hawaiian Macho Man swinging out 3 deep there. That is Famous Flyer tripping the 3/4 mile beam in 1:27 and 1/5. They'll pace the final turn and head for home into the inside. Falkirk with the lead here, but to the outside, a New Bucks, and now up on the outside, here comes Hawaiian Macho Man. Still game, still coming to him. Less than an eighth of a mile to go, and down the stretch they come. Falkirk to the inside. Hawaiian Macho Man is coming to him and coming on. Falkirk to the inside. Hawaiian Macho Man coming to the wire. Falkirk hangs on to win it. Hawaiian Macho Man in a very game effort was second. Third was the 4 Yankee Frankie, only racing for the purse. So Yankee Frankie was third, but we'll get the 4th place finisher. Will finish third at the time of the mile, 1:57, 1:50. 7th race from off the rail, the one Falkirk, a 5-year-old bake outing by Cam's Magic Trick out of a Huggle, she by Columbia George. Is owned by Roy Swaney of Spring Valley, Ohio, trained by David Loff. Nicely handled here this evening by wedding driver Jim Daly. Posting a new lifetime mark, 1:57 and 1, Falkirk. For driver Jim Daly, that's 2 wins on this evening's card, giving him a driving double. 1968 unofficial. Devon's Money is Jeff Cahill's Bud Light long shot of the night, is owned by Gus Hall of Lebanon, Ohio, trained by Lamar Moody with Jeff Ace Nicesonger. Number 2 is Trisha Lou. The lessee is Arthur Gilliam Jr. of Jamestown, Ohio, trained by Brandon Piggott with Bob Harper. The 3 is Linson Sand Diamond, owned by Larry Pennington of Flat Gap, Kentucky, trained by Jeff Brewer, Jason Brewer at the lines. The 4 is Mega Laugh, owned by Clarence You Can Call Me Sonny DeLong of Orient, Ohio, trained by Chancey Love with Dan Noble. The 5 is Whiskey Blue, owned by John Fike of New Albany, Ohio, trained by the K-Man, Kane Kaufman. Dean Collins is up. The 6 is Shaka Strawn, owned by Richard Stevens of Columbus, Ohio, trained by Fred Winstead Jr. with Brett Miller. Number 7 is Sammy's Bright Star, owned and trained by Ronald Gellerman of Sardinia, Ohio, Jim Daly. The 8 is JV's Principessa, owned by Gene Hall of Wallingford, Kentucky, trained by David Cooper, Mark Winters. From the outside of the 9 is Stormy Gracie, owned by David and Richard Finfrock of New Carlisle, Ohio, trained and driven by Jack Daly. And number 10, scoring from off the second tier, is Lori Ham Cam, owned by Research of Shelbyville, Indiana, and Research of Connorsville, Indiana, trained by David Perry. Kyle Leader is in her sulky. Field in motion. They're all fan pacing and firing away from the outside. There goes the 8 JV's Principessa, gets the first call. Middle of the track, there is Mega Laugh. Driving through to be third, that is Trisha Lou. Away racing in 4th, that's Devon's Money, the Bud Light long shot of the night. Away racing in 5, that is Lori Ham Cam. 6th on the inside is Linson Sand Diamond. 7th, that is Whiskey Blue. 8th along the rail, that is Shaka Strana. The 2 trailers here are Sammy's Bright Star and Stormy Gracie. As they move by the opening quarter in 27 and 3/5, and Mega Laugh and Dan Noble to the front end here, leading it by 2 1/4. To the inside, JV's Principessa yield for a garden spot, racing in 2 along the inside. Trisha Lou is racing third. At the cones, racing in 4th. Devon's Money is first to flush of the outside, racing in 4th. Towing along Lori Ham Cam to the outside in 5. Linson Sand Diamond to the inside in 6th. The outside racing in 7th. Whiskey Blue. 8th along the inside, that is Shaka Strawn. 9th along the rail there as they go go by the half. Sammy's Bright Star in 10th and trailing the field. Stormy Gray Sea. They were halfway home in 58 seconds flat. Off the turn and setting sail down the backside. Racing towards 3/4 and on top of the field with the lead here. Mega Laugh and Dan Noble leads it here by a length and a quarter. Grinding to get out first over the outside. Racing into that is Devon's Money. At the rail racing in third. That is JV's Prince of Pesa to the outside. Second over racing in fourth is Lori Ham Cam to the inside in 5, and buried there is Trisha Lou through 3/4 in 1:27 and 2/5. They'll pace the final turn and head for home, and Mega Laugh is under a one-headed whip here from Noble to the outside. Devon's Money still there, still coming to her as they turn to the top of the stretch. Less than an eighth of a mile to go, and driving through Power Alley on top of the field. Mega Laugh with the lead here. Devon's Money is trying to come to her. The outside Whiskey Blue is charging hard on the outside as they come to the wire. Mega Laugh, Whiskey Blue, Mega Laugh in front. Finishing second was the 5, Whiskey Blue. Third was the 1, Devon's Money. The time of the mile, 1:58, 2/5, Mega Laugh. Trackside of the winner's circle, the official winner of the 8th race, kicking off the late pick 3. Here's the 4, Mega Laugh. A 6-year-old bay mare by Die Laughing out of a Happy Megan mare. She by Tyler's Mark. Is owned by Clarence You Can Call Me Sonny DeLong of Orient, Ohio. Trained by Chancey Love. Nicely handled here this evening by winning driver Dan Noble. The 4, Mega Laugh, home in 1:58, 2/5. The 1 is Adam Quinton, owned by David Ehrenberg II of Westerville, Ohio. Trained by Jim Pollock Jr. Kyle Laters at the lines. Number 2 is Poker Deck, owned by Joan Laird of Marysville, Ohio, and Ray Jean Spurn of Delaware, Ohio, trained by Ray Spurn with Bob Harper. The 3 is Gypsy Double Deal, owned and trained by Kane Kaufman of Arcanum, Ohio. Brett Miller is up. The 4 is It's Carl Again, owned and trained by Harry Altop of Urbana, Ohio. Jack Daly. The 5 is Millway Big Cam, owned and trained by Jeffrey Mark Brewer of Moore, Ohio. Jason Brewer's at the lines. The 6 is Weeby Lee, owned by the Strollen Stable of Marion, Ohio, trained and driven by Bobby Arnett. The 7 is Ranchwood Francis, owned by John Cummins of Caledonia, Ohio, trained by James Larrabee with Dan Noble. Stepping onto the track is the 8, Johnny Be Gone, owned by Garnett Michelle Gibson of Mechanicsburg, Ohio, trained by J. Doug Loff with Tony Hall. From the outside of the 9 is Bossy Bill, owned by Joseph Shemaiah of Lexington, Kentucky, trained by Lamar Moody, Jeff Neishunger. Field in motion. Break the 3, Gypsy Double Deal. They're off and pacing and driving for the lead. There goes the 4, It's Carl Again. Gypsy Double Deal is back down pacing as they drive through the first turn and over to the opening quarter. It's Carl Again to the front end here. Poker Deck is yielding for a garden spot. Racing in 2, dropping in 3rd. That is Johnny Be Gone. Away in 4th is Bossy Bill. 5th on the inside is Adam Quinton. 6th along the rail, that is Millway Big Cam. 7th along the inside there is Yankee Dragon. 8th along the rail, that is Gypsy Double Deal. 9th is Weeby Lee in 10th and trailing the field here as they race by the opening quarter-mile mark of the race is Ranchwood Francis. The opening quarter came and went at a quick one, 27 and 4/5. They'll pace by the stands for the first time and head on down to the half and banking around the clubhouse turn. It's Carl Again leading the way here by a length and a half. Poker Deck is stalking in 2nd along the inside, racing in 3rd. Johnny Be Gone first over the outside, racing in 4th. That is Yankee Dragon, who is towing along here as they reach the halfway mile mark of the race, 58 and 4/5. Gypsy Double Deal is 2nd over on the outside, off the turn and driving down the backside. It's Carl Again with the lead here by a length and a quarter. Yankee Dragon is right there at the leader's wheel disc in 2. Along the inside, watching over the dueling leaders from 3rd, that is Poker Deck. Poised 2nd over on the outside, racing in 4th is Gypsy Double Deal. Buried at the rail, racing in 5, Johnny Be Gone with clearance now. Outside racing in 6, that is Adam Quinton, and he's doing just that as they march by 3/4 in 1:27 and 4/5. They'll pace the final turn and head for home. It's Carl Again is trying to make every pull a winning when it jumps it off stride. It's Carl Again is off stride and causing confusion amongst trailing horses. They turn to the top of the stretch. Less than an eighth of a mile to go, and down the stretch they come, inheriting the lead here. Yankee Dragon, but Poker Deck is coming to him and coming on to the inside. Yankee Dragon, Poker Deck is getting up. Poker Deck in front. Finishing second was the 10, Yankee Dragon. Third was the 9, Bossy Bill. The time of the mile, 1:58, 4/5, Poker Deck in a new lifetime mark. The unofficial winner, now the official winner of the 9th race. First half of the late daily double, the 2, Poker Deck. A 5-year-old big outing by Exotic Bat out of a Red Stars check. She by Shady Hill Heck. Owned by Joan Laird of Marysville, Ohio, and Regine Spurn of Delaware, Ohio. Trained by Rain Spurn. Nicely handled here this evening by winning driver Bob Harper. Third win in 2003. Home at a new lifetime mark, 158-4. The two. Poker Deck, and Bob Harper gets his second winning drive of the night, giving him a driving double. 210 exacta, 55-20, 210-9 try, 1,200. Number 1 is Arizona John, owned by Charles Hughes of Xenia, Ohio, trained by Steve Hughes with Dustin Hughes at the lines. Number 2 is Hammer and Dan, owned by Ronald Ross of Staffordsville, Kentucky, trained by Jeff Brewer. Jason Brewer is up. The 3 is Mark from Eden, owned by Winchester Bay Acres Incorporated of Powell, Ohio, trained by Daryl Hoosier with Brett Miller. The 4 is Bad Boy Justin, owned by Roy Swaney of Spring Valley, Ohio, trained by David Loff with Jim Daly up. The 5 is Chocolate Chip, owned by Harry and Iris Horowitz of Brooklyn, New York, trained by Tim Rucker, Adam Rucker. The 6 is Mystical Spur, owned by Dick James of Lebanon, Ohio, trained by Tommy Lee Smith with Bob Harper. The 7 is Max's Memory, owned by Richard McCall of Bucyrus, Ohio, trained by Ken Zorns with Dale Edwards. The 8 is Sassy's Trek, owned by Melby Ober Sr. of Cable, Ohio, trained by Ann Hildebrand with Tony Hall. The 9 is Jake Daniels, owned by Jonathan Gordon of Champaign, Illinois, trained by Marlon Smith with Dan Noble. The 10 is Cody Noble and Bob from off the second tier, is owned by Robert Jordan of Blacklick, Ohio, who also does the training. Bill Long Jr. in the sulky. That's the field for the 10th and final race. Exactas tries and getting set for a start to the nightcap. Superfecta Pacers. The 5 Chocolate Chip has missed the gate. Field in motion. They're all fan pacing and firing away from the inside. There goes the 3, Mark from Eden. Break the 4, Bad Boy Justin, as they race into the first turn and over to the opening quarter. And Max's Memory is on the go here and clears to the front end. Along the inside, Mark from Eden will yield for a garden spot. Racing in 2, Jake Daniels has come away racing in 3rd. 4th, that is Arizona John. 5th, that is Hammer and Dan. 6th on the inside is Mystical Spur. 7th is Cody Noble and Bob. Got to the outside in 8th, that is Chocolate Chip. 9th on the inside, Bad Boy Justin in 10th, and trailing the field, Sassy's Trek by the opening quarter in 27 3/5. They'll pass by the stands for the first time and head on down to the half, and on top of the field, that is Max's Memory out there uncontested, rolling under the wire with 5/8 of a mile remaining, leading it by 2 1/4. To the inside, Mark from Eden is tracking in 2nd. Along the inside, Jake Daniels is thinking about coming to the outside in 3rd and does so now. Along the inside, racing in 4th, Mark from Eden. To the outside, racing in 5, Hammer and Dan. As they reach the half, they're halfway home, 57 4/5. A second panel there at 30-1, and Dale Edwards reaches down and pops the earplugs on the 7, Max's Memory, leading it here by a length and a quarter. Grinding it out first over the outside, racing in 2, that is Jake Daniels. Along the inside in 3rd, Mark from Eden. 2nd over on the outside in 4th, that is Hammer and Dan. 3rd over on the outside of there in 5th, that is Chocolate Chip, who swung up 3 wide there. 6th on the inside, that is Arizona John, swung up 3 deep from 7th. There goes Sassy's Trick, 3/4 in 126 2/5. They'll pace the final turn and head for home. On top of the field, Max's Memory is trying to take this field gate to wire. And to the inside, Mark from Eden is ready to pounce on him from 2nd as they turn to the top of the stretch. Less than 1/8 of a mile to go. And down the stretch they come. Max's Memory with the lead. Mark from Eden will take a shot at him from the pocket, is coming to him and coming on. Max's Memory to the inside. Mark from Eden is charging on the outside, but at the wire, Max's Memory in front. Finishing 2nd was the 3, Mark from Eden. 3rd was the 2, Hammer and Dan. It was close for 4th. May have been the 6, Mystical Spur. The time of the mile, 156 flat. Max's Memory. Photo reveals 7326 is unofficial. 7326 is unofficial. Trackside of the winner's circle, the unofficial winner of the 10th race, the 7 Max's Memory, gate to wire in 156 flat. A 5-year-old bake outing by Towner's Big Guy out of a Wendy Stentler. She by Frugal Gourmet, is owned by Richard McCall of Bucyrus, Ohio, trained by Kenneth Zorns. Nicely handled here this evening by winning driver Dale Edwards. First win in 2003, home in 156 flat, gate to wire, the 7 Max's Memory. 7326 is now official. 7-3 exacta returned 1840. 7-3-2 try 152.80. 7-3-2-6 super $1,119.60. Late double 2-7 43.40. Late pick 3 3 of 3 184.40.